called AI-Driven Systems of Engagement and the Future of Customer Interaction. How appropriate, right? We just talked about the strategy, what do we do internally to get our teams on board. Now we're ready to go out to the market and go out to the consumer and see if we can provide some value and delight there. So customer expectations are evolving fast, and AI is reshaping how our businesses engage with them. Instead of static, rule-based interactions, we've got AI-driven tools enabling more personalized, dynamic, and intelligent customer experiences. Today, we'll explore how AI-first solutions are transforming engagement across the industries, from hyper-personalization to smarter automation, and how our business is redefining customer interaction in that way. And what does the future of AI hold? What does the future hold for AI-powered engagement? So to break it all down for you today, we have an incredible panel of industry experts I'm going to invite up to join us, and please feel free to take the stage and choose your seats as I read off your names. So Yogesh Bhardwaj, Senior Director in GSO, Data and IT Shared Services at Sensata Technologies. Thank you, Yogesh, for joining us. Matthew Marino, please come join us, Vice President and Head of Operations and Employee Benefits at ShelterPoint. We also have Eric Karofsky, Founder and CEO at Vector HX. I'd also like to welcome Shahidul Manan, Chief Data Analytics and AI Officer at Orlando Health. And our fearless moderator this session will be moderated by Maria Lavorgetta, Chief Data Intelligence Officer at WordCom. Let's have a nice warm-up round of applause for our panelists and our moderator. Go ahead, Maria.
Bear with me, I had knee surgery. If anyone has operated on their ACL, it's terrible. So that was about 4 months ago. So I will be stand leaning. It's my first time in heels in a while, but it was worth it. So for this session, we have a wonderfully diverse group, and I would like for them to introduce themselves so they can, I don't butcher, their experience level, but I like the fact that it's balanced between healthcare regulations, employee benefits and compliance with Matt. Shahidul was the healthcare, of course. Manufacturing Internet of Things with Yogesh. Also human-centered design with Eric. Those are the things that I'd really like to lean in and think about. We have some structured questions here, but I'll leave room a little more often for anyone else to speak up if you have any follow-ups. Just want to try and keep it efficient. So without further ado, who would like to go first?
I'm Yogesh Bhardwaj, Senior Director for Corporate Applications, Data, and IT Shared Services. In my current organization, I'm here for the last 7 years. It's manufacturing. We are the sensor manufacturing organization. So it doesn't matter which car you are driving, you will have at least 6 sensors from our company, Sensata Technologies. Of course, you will not know our name, but I'm pretty sure TPMS, that use light turns on, that's from us. 98% market share is with us, so that's why I can say very surely that you are having one of our sensors. Prior to that, I worked for high-tech companies like EMC, Dell, Oracle, Accenture, and of course with a few financial companies, Citigroup, MasterCard, to name a few. I stopped counting number of years after 15, so I have a 15 plus year of experience. I never increased that number, so I will stay on 15 plus years.
Matt Marino, I am with ShelterPoint. We are a small disability carrier, primarily based out of New York, and we're expanding. I head up our operations, so I'm a little bit of a unicorn in this room that my primary focus is really around the people and process side. I know enough to be dangerous with technology. I actually left Prudential just recently as the head of digital capabilities for group insurance, and prior to that I ran our transformation program, starting up our COE and RPA for Unum. To me, what leads me here and the excitement around this is really how do we think about AI as another tool in our toolkit, so to speak, and I think that last panel did a really nice job of that, of we don't necessarily need to boil the ocean or solve world hunger with this today, but how do we think about this augmenting our toolkit to create better experiences, more efficient experiences, and as we think about digital first, that's really my mindset, so it may be a little bit of a spin on AI first, but thinking of it as the right tool for the right job, and I do think that there's a lot of jobs that AI is going to help us
Hi, I'm Eric Korofsky from Vector HX. So Vector HX is a design and build agency, do a lot of work in AI, and you know, the way I commonly frame it is we all know what a poor experience is like, customer experience is like. We've interacted, and I apologize in advance, with the Registry of Motor Vehicles and Comcast, so I apologize if anyone was there, but we know what a bad experience is like, and we know what a great experience is like with an Amazon or an Apple. And that stark difference is kind of where I focus in really trying to understand what are customer experiences, how do we go ahead and improve them. For about 20 to 25 years prior to that, I worked at large agencies and developed digital programs for companies like Michelin and Fidelity, Royal Caribbean, and others. And then I led user experience at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. Right now, we're doing a lot of work in AI enablement and making sure that things get adopted, because we're seeing a significant adoption problem.
Hi, good morning. Shahidul Manan. I'm the Chief Data AI Officer at Orlando Health. Orlando Health is one of the largest hospital systems in Central Florida. And in my journey, I have been with data AI technology for over 20 years now, starting with financial. I was with Bank of America, Freddie Mac for a long time, and then made the transition into high tech and software business. And then last decade has been in healthcare, which is a fascinating greenfield place, maturing fast and looking at a lot of innovation in data, AI, digitization. And I've been very fortunate to work with Mass General, Brigham, with Bonsecker Mercy Health, some of the largest and most reputed healthcare system, and help them in their transformation journey. I see my colleagues from the old days as well, and we can share some fun stories. But healthcare is heavily, I think, moving fast, but at the same time is kind of probably have the largest legacy and technical debt on their back because of the late entrance into this journey. If you remember, the healthcare digital journey essentially started with the ACA Act, Obamacare Act, as well known, where the digitization became more of a mandate. And that started the digital footprint, which started to lead to more data, leading to more AI and all the digital innovation that's happening today. And our focus has been, in three major areas. Customer experience, in our version, patient experience is the top one. But we also are focused heavily on operational efficiency because of our low margin, highly low margin nonprofit business, we call it. And of course, our heavy focus is on patient outcome, which is essentially diagnosis and treatment. And how can we use data, enable more and more automation, more and more AI, more and more digitalization is our main focus. My focus has been through all this journey, from data to AI to implementation and digitization. We hear that a lot, but essentially most of the digitization today, from strategy to execution to tool to technology, is driven by data, driven by AI. It's no longer healthcare or medical equipment on the bedside or in the OT or any of the places, but it's something that's heavily driven by data, heavily customized for patient experience, patient outcome. And on the patient experience side, again, I think healthcare is catching up. You all have been through your provider journey, through the frustrations of scheduling to waiting to various other post-prognosis challenges. The whole system needs to be more and more seamless. And we all know, being the data AI geeks, that data can help do that. Data can tie it all together, make it more custom for a particular patient through all the data that we have, building the 360 view, and then provide that AI capability on top. And AI is moving fast and furious. In many cases, it's still in siloed form, but we're trying to tie it together. And the agentic AI and the new fast and furious Gen AI revolution is helping us a lot. We'll talk about that. But it's a fascinating journey, and especially in healthcare, patient care, patient experience, customer experience is prime.
Well said. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. The main thing I tend to think about is each of you operate in industries where customer trust is obviously paramount, and you want to make sure we still have the same value proposition whenever it's a product that you've had for a long time. But the stakes and regulations obviously vary dramatically between all of you. I thought of this more for Eric with your experience, especially with user design, since I've struggled with that as a developer often. I want people to click on a lot of things. I'm not thinking about who's using it, sort of thing. As AI has become more sophisticated in customer interactions, how have you seen organizations that you've worked for balance automation with authentic human connection? Because that can become a lot more interesting in this age.
Yeah, so thanks for the question.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so right now we see a lot of AI really in the hands of engineers, and especially in healthcare and I presume a lot of other industries. It's in the hands of the engineers because it's moving so fast and so complex, and they're the ones that are really empowered to go ahead and start playing with it, coming up with ideas, and they're coming up with some fascinating solutions. The problem that we see that, really frequently, though, is first of all, they're not designed for humans. They're designed for the engineers themselves. They're not collaborating with others. So it's not something that's necessarily usable to the end customer. On top of that, they're not necessarily solving the business problems that are aligned with the KPIs of the organization. And lastly, they're building things that are often black boxes. So there's a big trust issue. So at the end of the day, we see huge adoption problems because if I don't trust it, if it's not easy to use and it's not solving my business problem, then why the hell am I going to use it? So at the end of the day, we're seeing a lot of really interesting projects come up. They're just not being adopted, they're not being funded, and they end up dying. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we see. A report I think just came out yesterday or the day before. Some crazy number, like an MIT study came out. 95% of all agentic AI applications are not seeing business value. And a couple months ago, McKinsey came up with a similar number of 80%. And that's just crazy. And some of that, we were talking earlier, some of that is, you need to keep failing and keep failing, so ultimately you learn and come up with a better solution. But there's certainly ways that we can go ahead and improve it, make it faster, and a lot of the things that I see are from the user experience side.
And I would add that without proper measurement alignment between the strategic and implementation, you're going to have a lot of trouble with that. And the way that we're measuring things, we were having this discussion at the table earlier, is changing drastically. And you need a different skill set than you used to. In our preliminary conversation, we talked a lot about business analysts sort of being sacred now, because they now have to understand more about the entire supply chain, if you will, and they need to be more subject matter expert than they were in the past, because they need to keep up with the changes, but also be able to speak the language of both teams. So moving to our second question, since it is just a different talent hire, what gaps are you currently seeing between having AI tools and actually deploying them effectively for customer engagement when there is a talent problem or a talent issue that we're trying to solve that's different than it used to be? And open for everyone. And if you wanted to comment on the first question, please.
I'll jump in on I'm going to start with the business analyst side. I made that reference to RPA earlier, and I think there's a risk that we might be doing the same thing with AI. I said this to Eric. Sometimes it feels like we have a hammer now, and we're running around looking for a nail. And if we don't find a nail, we're still going to hit it with AI. That's not the way to solve business problems. And where I'm going with this when we think about the business analyst role is we need to be able to bridge the gap between what we're trying to accomplish from an experience perspective. What are the capabilities required to create the experience that we desire for our customers? And at that point, you now have a good road pathway towards what are your business requirements and what are the right technologies, if any, that solve that in a logical way. I see a lot. I grew up as a Six Sigma black belt. You can't talk about process re-engineering anymore without digital enablement. When I think about the business analyst role and I think about how do I start looking at creative ways of filling that gap, I'm starting to find that continuous improvement mindset, they're looking for a problem. They're looking to quantify the benefit that solving that problem will be, because we all know ROI is a major issue right now for us. As we talk about the excitement around this, eventually that investment will die off like it did with RPA if we're not hitting home runs at some point. But they don't need to be grand slams, but they need to be home runs, and having that continuous improvement mindset that understands the process, understands the labor expense or the efficiencies that process does or doesn't deliver. Now all of a sudden you're finding those little nuggets that are of significant value, and you're not trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah, you guys.
So I think the critical thing is differentiating the BA with the mindset of AI. Traditional BAs were looking for the problem, which is very deterministic in nature, and finding the very deterministic solution. AI by its own nature is not deterministic. So you are trying to figure it out how you can make it a non-deterministic solution towards a deterministic path. So you have to have that mindset, hey, there will be a outcome can be different. And someone called it out the black box earlier in one of the panel conversation. Yes, it's a black box. So you have to train it, and it's a continuous journey. It's not one time done and dusted and you move on. So you again and again and again. It's not going to be over like, okay, I'm giving you this solution and it will work forever like in the past when you have a very deterministic solutions. Here, the new data is coming in, outcome can be different. Now, your agent, which was working fine till yesterday, will not work today. So that is a key difference between the traditional BA skill versus the BA with the AI mindset. Another question and the thing is, you don't want to do something which is non-value. RPA, I have seen like in the past, we are trying to automate every damn thing. It's not a RPA job. Fix a process and many of those things will flow through. So don't fix something which is broken. Come up with the use case, think about the value beforehand. Not just, okay, I will do some AI and some magic will happen. No, it will not happen. You want to differentiate between solutions which are going to give the value and some of the solution going to give you the individual productivity. Nowadays, if you see like any company you go in, Copilot, Microsoft Copilot or other Copilots are available. Yes, they are all great tools, but they cannot be translated into the enterprise-grade solutions. So it's good to have them from the individual productivity point of view, but if you are thinking that when someone is trying to do the search and getting the minutes of meeting, that will give you the dollar value, no, it will not. You have to use AI as a part of the bigger solution, not itself a solution. So you had, I think Shravan called it out, integrated AI solution. You have to look that way. You have a multiple enterprise solutions, whether ERPs, CRMs, or HRS systems, or EMRs and whatnot. But you have to look how you extract the information and integrate and pass it on the other system. That's where the real value lies. If you build your use case on that sense, it will help. And that's what is the essence for the use case.
Shahidal, do you have a? Yeah.
I think all well said, and I agree with my colleagues. I would just focus on two things that I think is the biggest challenge in AI operationalization. First part is the finding and extracting the value, the ROI. I know it's a hackneyed word, but when we go to the CFO for more and more money and investment, that's the first thing we hear. When am I going to get the return and how much is it going to be? And unfortunately, I think my colleague mentioned, harvesting the value through AI is still pretty far-fetched, not only with the big techs that we see, but with the non-tech and various service industries, healthcare, us included. And that is becoming a challenge. It is true that we see great products, we are seeing great innovations, and we are very excited with the new technology. But how do we actually make it to work? How do we actually harvest the value that we are looking for in terms of patient outcome, in terms of our cost optimization, and quantify those? All these hard questions are coming along. And in order to find the right application, we do need the AI translators. That's what I think we are all talking about. It's a little bit unique and different. It involves, not only the technology hat, but the business domain understanding and process re-engineering in many ways. And the final, I call the last mile of implementation, how it's exactly going to be adopted and harvested in the field. Without all this combination, I think we are seeing more and more kind of science projects that doesn't go much further. And fortunately, we are seeing great value in some of the ones. So one of my colleagues previously mentioned about the ambient AI. In healthcare, it's becoming big, and those who are not in healthcare, we have a major problem in healthcare that we call physician burden, which is the physicians spend a lot of time in documenting for legality, for getting the claims, the money back, and all that. And the stats say 1 hour spent with a patient results in 2 hours of background work for the physicians. And that's why most of the physicians are frustrated with digital products. They work in the evenings, they work in the weekends, and they're saying we can't take it anymore. So the DAX ambient AI, we are a big implementer of it, is what resolves that problem by listening to the patient and physician conversation, automatically updating it on the digital platforms, taking away those 2 hours. And it's been tremendously successful. And that's because we had that major connection with a field problem, and we have a major adoption. I can't, say no to too many physicians. It's not very cheap, but we also have to have the privacy and other guardrails and trainings. But everyone wants it. That's the success story we want when we talk about AI implementation. And I think the AI translator has to become a more matured role in this journey. And the other part is the operationalization. So when we do the AI product planning and implementation planning, the way I have structured the team or structured agile teams, there has to be business representation, and there has to be this translator role along with my technology, big hats. And that's how I think we are gearing towards solving this problem. And this is just going to grow. There are many new roles that are evolving with the AI journey, and this is one of the major ones that we need to focus on.
Well said. Oh, yes, please.
I just want to add something on digital adoption. Like I think about my days as a product owner, and part of adoption to me that I see that we're struggling with is, you made the reference to science projects, and I think sometimes the business operations folks I think that's where we often find ourselves where adoption is low. If I was to use an analogy of, I handed you a cigarette and I asked you to smoke it, and I gave you a lighter, flamethrower, or sticks in a nest. Assuming that you're actually going to follow the instruction, we all know smoking is bad for you, but assuming that you follow the instructions, intuitively you would never go old school and find like the 2 sticks to rub together. You would never use the flamethrower, which might be the science project. But if we're not understanding what the user is, who the user is, what it is that they're trying to accomplish, but we've created a really fancy thing that's awesome because we're using 17 different acronyms that I don't understand, you're going to have adoption problems.
Yes.
Sorry,
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that I've been hearing, and when I think about from the analyst point of view, change management is really the big issue here, and that's why you see from McKinsey is coming up with great research almost every day. They're just pouring so much into this because they just see the process re-engineering and the technology change as just becoming a huge cash flow opportunity for them. The way that I often address this is, talking with the people that are actually making the applications and doing some design audits and trying to understand who have you been working with to make sure that you're coming up with the right solution. Do design thinking exercises and workshops. Because again, if it's all just engineers talking with engineers, they're designing for engineers. So we all know there's just tremendous value in getting a diversified group of people in one room and having a workshop and exploring different ideas. And then you start ending up coming up with a solution that really works for everybody.
I've thought a lot about old school Gartner Forrester journey mapping with Post-it notes a lot lately. And even you get all the stakeholders in the room, I think the value proposition is still very much so there for figuring out what that.
being done.
I totally agree. We have time for the last question, but we've hit on it already. We are all thinking a lot about change management. And honestly, to me, that feels like the hardest part. How do you implement short-term, low-hanging fruit while still thinking about the long-term strategy when you have solutions that are in AI changing every day at a rapid pace that we've probably never seen in our lifetime? So looking ahead, what does successful change management look like when replacing existing customer interaction systems with AI-driven ones? And how do you help organizations manage that tech debt and process transformation? Tech debt being the worst one for myself specifically in my current journey.
Yeah, I think the change management is a great topic and probably will take a long time for all of our collective knowledge in technology and implementation and how to transform an organization, especially in this new era. What are the challenges, tricks, and success? One thing I can share is that I believe that change management essentially in this day and age lies on three major pillars. The number one is building the trust in AI. No one's going to adapt anything unless you have the trust from the providers, the practitioners, and the patients. So that's where I think AI gets complicated. We have, I'll share candidly, and I'm sure my colleagues have been going through this experience. I get like 10, 15 product requests every month, sometime in weeks. And that's fascinating. I'm a techie at heart, so I love to know what's new out there and how it's happening. And then we find, of course, there are hypes and there are some real values. But the challenge is, all these are, again, I think, designed by technologists and focused on technology excellence than the practical implementations in many ways. So as soon as we go into a little bit deeper, it starts to crack. And especially in healthcare and in financial and highly regulated industry, we have some basic fundamental rules on privacy, security, and others, and some of those doesn't even qualify through that. So I have a framework of product evaluation where we go through all of those first. And now my experience has been that out of the 15, once I send out the tool for product evaluation, at least 5, if sometimes half of them drop out, because the questions themselves poses the weakness of the product. I'm just sharing, some of the challenges that we face and how I'm tackling those. And then the other pillar for change management, and the biggest one, is managing the culture and changing the culture. I think Tom Peters famously once quoted that culture eats strategy. You may have the best technology, you may have the best strategy, you may have the best team, but if the culture is not ready for it, it's not going to work. And anyone going through the pain of transformation knows what I'm talking about, and it's about people. It's about evangelism, it's about aligning your strategy and getting through the political hoops and understanding and getting the buy-in. And it's connected to value proposition, but also the old habits and how things work. That's where the process re-engineering comes. I think start with the process, and it goes back to the people process technology when we come about culture change. Start with the process, look at the process, and adding AI to a broken process is only going to accelerate a broken process. It's not going to really solve the problem. So think about those in a fundamental, rudimentary stage, that what am I achieving, how am I doing, and then how the AI fits into that, and how can I rally the support from the people, from executives to line managers to actually field practitioners. And then the final one, I think everyone who are not in big tech, like us, are always crunched for the right skills and high-tech, highly qualified people for these new emerging technologies. While we are looking at jumping the wagon and going as fast as we can, we soon enough find out that besides consulting help, we really have not a lot of strength in the bench. So a big focus needs to be on upskilling and on transforming the organization, the process. If you are not agile, move to agile. If you don't have the people who are from the traditional ETL world, move them and upskill them. They're all smart people. They've been through this journey for decades. They can transform. Give them the opportunity to upskill into the new AI world, in the new agentic AI platform, and everyone who is a techie is hungry for new technologies, new skilling. So making sure that your workforce is upskilled. So it's the people who's going to make the change management happen. The technology is big, the release management, all those technology IT stuff is very important, but focus on the culture.
I know we are running out of the time, so I will just add a
please.
few things here. Is AI is a journey. AI is not a technology alone, and it's not an overnight journey. You have to set up the basic ground rules. You have to set up the governance. You have to uplift or upskill your folks with the technology coming in, and then you can deliver the goods. So it's not going to be overnight, easy journey. Governance is critical. Data literacy is critical. Many people don't understand why they are not getting the outcome despite doing the same thing again. So you have to uplift people along with yourself and your organization. Innovation is happening everywhere. Maybe you want to have an idea of having some community of practice that where you are having a session and bringing people in your fold and exposing them with a new tool, technology, process. That way they can contribute to bigger good. So with that, I'll pass it on to.
I would just add a couple things. One is, when you think about change management, there's the what's in it for you, or what's in it for me, so to speak. And from a customer perspective, having the customer in the room with the solutions. I think about how much time and value has been delivered in projects that I've been on, where I've brought my external customer literally into our design sprints to understand and see what it is that we're doing and give us live feedback. If it doesn't work in design, we're not going to build it and deploy it and then act surprised if it doesn't work when we deploy it. Similarly, when we're talking about systems of engagement and how our employees engage with things, I almost looked at my days as a black belt. I was a facilitator, I wasn't listening. I understood the toolkit, but I wasn't supposed to be the person in the room that was the expert with it, how we were going to solve the problem or what the business problem was. The projects that I've seen most successful when we think about change management, we have the end user in the room as part of that design team. They become champions. They built this. They feel a level of pride on it. I think we need to break down this dynamic that we're on different teams. We need to have that enterprise approach that we either succeed or fail as a team, and that's from the end user, that's from the developer, that's from the finance person that's giving us the dollars to invest. We don't want to be able to throw it over the wall and say, well, we didn't get the right requirements, or well, they didn't do what we told them to do. We have to have that team first mindset, and then when we're actually out there deploying, I'm a big believer in management systems, whether it's lean, there's different mechanisms, but if what you've built is better, and if you've changed your goal structure to only allow what's best, and especially in a regulated industry, we talk about standard work. I'm getting into all the boring stuff of process, but I don't want a non-deterministic process. I need to sit in front of a regulator and say why a claim was denied or approved. So when we talk about being able to drive some of that adoption, some of that change management, part of it is the management systems themselves that we build around the tools that we're delivering.
Yes, well said. So we're a little bit over, but I know I want to have the opportunity to see if anyone has a question in the audience. Anyone? Thank you.
Great discussion, guys. I completely agree with the process part of it, and that's where my question leads. We all are kids in today's world with the shiny toy AI all over the place, and we are completely distracted at all levels. So we can talk about it, yes, processes are important, but subconsciously we are still focused on AI. Show something with AI. Every deck needs to have an AI something. I just want to know from the panel and anybody in the room, are you familiar with any tools available to us as leaders where we can go back and focus on process and AI is a part of the solution? For example, you were talking about Six Sigma and Lean. As we go through TMAC, the I part is where AI comes in, but we still have to do define, measure part of it to see what we are trying to solve here and how we're going to measure it. So I just want to understand, if any tools your experience, find success to get back to the track and use AI for it.
So I'm gonna jump on that one. I don't know if this is working now, I'm just gonna be loud. I'm gonna jump on that one. I would say there's a lot in the process mining space. I think about like tools like Scan AI, not to go down vendor specific paths, but tools that actually allow you to process map what's really happening. Unlike a lot of the time we'll start with like an SOP and go over happening and then we'll job shadow. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So there are a lot of tools like in that process mining space that are highly effective. I'm going to go offline. I forget the name of the vendor. I was just at AI Tool last week. One of the things that was a really cool application that they were doing, kind of to augment the types of outputs that Scan AI would produce, is introducing conversation with BI on top of the output. So as you see this process, now you actually know what's really happening on the work floor. Now you're introducing conversation with BI to understand what are the things like this is manual data entry, this should be automated through an API, and that to me is a really exciting and kind of augmentation to what I say traditional process.
Any other ideas for software? I want to know that answer too, for sure, because it's a complicated question between how tracked is the information and when you're feeding it into it, how like the data quality, the completeness issue, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so many things to think about. Thank you all very much. This was a great panel. I really enjoyed working with everyone, and really enjoy learning more from you all in the hours to come.
Let's give it up for Maria, Shahidul, Eric, Matthew, and Yogesh. Really good.